bottom of the clock. Speaking of people who made BC home at one time, among others, Brian Burke in here to join us.
Two tours of duty there. Assistant GM from 87 to 92 and GM from 98 to 2004.
Not a bad place to call home.
No, and I lived there for a year when I was unemployed, too, before I got the Anaheim.
What's the best part about living there?
Summertime.
Oh, yeah.
Winters are awful.
A lot of rain.
Not real. Oh, well, just the rain. Yeah,
Rain.
It's not real cold.
No real
No,
snow. So it's not a real winter.
It's depressing. It's depressing. It's really the winters there. Even when the hockey team was going well, we had 300-point seasons, I think, when I was there, and fans were great. Everything was great, but you don't see the sun for 3 or 4 days.
But that's when, you know what, if you're like me, Brian, like you just do the grouse grind. You just go up.
Yeah.
I just do it on the regular.
I saw you there a lot.
There were 80-year-olds running past me like I was nothing. I want to talk a lot of hockey with you, but you've been an executive a while. You've dealt with highs and lows in terms of head coaches. There's obviously a situation with the Raptors right now where we don't know what's about to happen. There's a lot of scrutiny on Dwayne. But I just want to ask you from a general sense, because you've been there, how tough a moment is this where you can feel something coming, you don't want to do it ethically, you know everyone involved, they're friends, but you know something might happen. Like, how tough a time is that?
Well, I think the first rule of pro sports is, I remember Lou Nanne told me that he wouldn't hire Murray Oliver as his head coach, even though he thought he was the best candidate, because he couldn't bear to fire his friend down the road. First rule of pro sports is that friendship thing is by the boards. If Masai figures that he has to make a coaching change, Dwayne will understand that, their friendship notwithstanding. We just made a coaching change, so this will sound really hypocritical before I left Calgary. But I think in pro sports, we're way too impatient with coaches and GMs. I think it's a problem. The math doesn't work anymore. We used to have 21 teams, and so you'd miss the playoffs, you make 1 or 2 trades, you get right back in. Now there's 31, soon to be 32. So the Toronto Maple Leafs, if you're a season ticket holder here, which I am, Toronto Maple Leafs are due to win a cup every 31 years. It'll be 32 years in another year. They're due to play in the conference finals every 16 years. So the math is daunting. It doesn't work. And owners' math is always different than your math. So they miss the playoffs 6 years, they bring you in, and it takes you 3 years to make it. They're like, we haven't made the playoffs in 9 years. And you're like, no, it's 3. It's 3 years. So I know Masai, I know Dwayne, I like them both. I hope they find a way to, it's none of my business. I don't know enough to offer an opinion except to say I hope they find a way for Dwayne to stay because he is a quality person. Yeah, and he's gotten them a long, long way. Yeah. But I certainly understand if Masai concludes he's got to make a change, and he's got to make a change.
It's funny, if we relate this back to hockey, I can remember similar conversations happening in Winnipeg. And Kevin Shoveldayoff was the guy who stood pat, and he was waiting too long for this team to come around. And now he's being praised for that same patience.
Yeah, and the hero there is Mark Chipman.
Yeah.
So he's the owner. Chevy goes in there. This is his 8th year, I think. He's made the playoffs 1 time, and they got swept. Yeah. So 1 for 8 and a sweep. And now all of a sudden he's got one of the best teams in the Western Conference. And he was patient with his coach. He went 0 for 3 in the playoffs. So sometimes patience is a virtue. I think in general we're not patient enough in pro sports. I've said that for years, by the way. I never fired a coach I hired in 30 years. The coaches I fired were all inherited. I never fired a coach I hired.
It's interesting, Masai inherited.
He inherited Dwayne.
Patience is a virtue, yet he who hesitates is lost.
That's the tightrope.
Yeah, that's the one.
No, that's the tightrope. And you got a fan base with certain expectations, and you got the media with certain expectations. Masai is one of the nicest people I've met, and he's very, very bright. He doesn't need any advice from me. Dwayne Casey, great guy.
Very good guy, yeah.
Knows a ton about coaching. Doesn't need any advice from me. I would like to see. I'd love it if they find a way to make it work.
Appreciate your candor because you've been, and I know you're not there, we're not there, but you've been in some spots. You have a lot of experience as executive, so I appreciate you speaking on it in that way. Yeah. How surprised were you it played out that way in Winnipeg last night?
I was very surprised. I mean, I told you before we came on the air. I predicted going into that, and thank God I didn't say it on the air. I didn't do that game.
I hate when people are wrong on air when they say things.
Yeah, I thought Winnipeg was going to spank them last night, and I think what you saw last night was playoff experience. This is a team that went to the finals last year. They have been in this situation before. They know how to win games like that. Winnipeg maybe don't yet because they don't have the playoff experience. I mentioned you two off the air. We won the Stanley Cup in Anaheim in 07. The year before, we went to the conference finals. I'm absolutely convinced that playoff experience is why we were able to win the championship.
What does that mean in a Game 7, that experience? Is it play more of a factor, or can it be less because it's just oftentimes a flip of the coin? Because Connor Hellebuck is going to play in his first Game 7 ever. I think his last playoff action was UMass Lowell. Like, he's now in it.
Yeah.
And you're going to ask a lot of these Jets.
Well, I have allergy problems. You wonder my eyes are watering here. I'm not crying because it's good to see you two right now.
We usually get emotional.
I thought that.
He does get very emotional when we see each other. Yeah.
For different reasons.
Yes.
Yeah, it's rage usually,
It's
but whatever.
rage. Yeah.
I think it will make a huge difference. As much as we all would like to see a Canadian team advance, I think Nashville has a clear edge here. They've got the last change. They've got the crowd. Their crowd's as loud as Winnipeg's. Difference being they got 2,000 more fans. So we'll give Winnipeg the edge on per capita noise.
Right.
But I think it's going to be a hard row for Winnipeg to hold. The beauty of playoff hockey, though, is there really, truly is no momentum from game to game if teams can manufacture their own. In other words, it's this playoff in particular. You'll see one team win convincingly, and you'll think, oh, God, they got it going now. And the next night, they'll lose convincingly. And then you're like, oh, the other team's got it going now. It's really been a strange playoff for me.
Strange series, too.
But in this series specifically, though, because it's been so back and forth, I look
on the road.
I look at it almost as when the swings are this severe, these are some good coaches in play here, right? Like these are some guys making real adjustments, right?
For sure.
I think we got to look, because even Peter Laviolette, the guy, he's one of the best coaches in the world. Like sometimes we don't talk about Laviolette in that way.
Well, he's got a ring. He's gone to the finals, 3 times? I had him in the Olympics in Sochi. He's a good coach. He's very thorough, very prepared. Good guy, too. And a guy that played like Division III college hockey and managed to play a little bit in the NHL. That's hard to do.
Yeah, it is very hard to do. Sid and I were debating yesterday the virtues of a guarantee. Now, PK Subban comes through on the guarantee, or at least Pecorine, Forsberg, Arvidsson come through on the guarantee. Are you a fan of that in a room where a guy stands up and says, we're going to go there and we're going to win?
You know what, to me, I don't think, unless you're a player that the other players are really concerned about, oh, God, we can't embarrass him. He guaranteed to win. We got to get it for him. Right. I don't think there's much of that in 2018. So I think it's a harmless thing. If you, like Torts made his guarantee. Yeah. Now, if they win, he looks like, Mark Messier against New Jersey back in the day. If they lose, it's like, okay, it was a good try. The problem is guys are getting sucked into the guarantees now. Because the media know. They say, well, are we coming back for a Game 7? What are you going to say? No? Yeah. Or I don't know. God, I hope so. I'm going to say a bunch of prayers that we do. Yeah. You've got to say, yes, we're coming back for a 7. And then they're like, oh, he guaranteed to win. Right. And so what are you going to say? So to me, it used to be innovative and cool. Like Torts wasn't prompted into his. Right. His was just from the heart. We'll be back. These other ones I look at, they look manufactured. They look like the players gotten baited into it.
But don't you think Torts is going to have to pay for that after?
Why?
At all? I think someone goes, there's Torts doing the thing that Torts does.
Well, that's social media. John Tortorella's, he pays about as much attention to social media as I do, which is zero. I don't even know. I have a Twitter account, but my daughter does it. I can't even access the thing.
Yeah, you should see what's on it.
Yeah.
Well, I
see
do.
What we say about
I tell her what to tweet. Yes. It's my daughter Katie, and I tell her what to tweet. Right. But so it's not like it's a phantom account, but it keeps me away from the account when I get mad. So.
But I think we should have a month of you. We need a month of you on the account.
I don't know about that.
We need full Brian on the account. Can you give us a shout out on social media? Topic for another day.
Katie.
Yeah, Katie. Penguins out. What a run. That's quite something in this day and age.
Yeah, they went 2 in a row.
Who's the best team left?
Oh. Well, I'm going the best team we played this year. I think I said this when I was here a week or so ago. The best team we played this year was Nashville. On paper, 1 through 4 in the lines, 1 through 6 in the D. Their goaltender's excellent. The best team we played, however, late in the season was Winnipeg. So this is a coin toss now for Game 7. I think either team can beat Las Vegas. But they're going to have to play great. Las Vegas is just amazing to watch. Just amazing to watch. But I think both teams are better than Vegas if they play their games. Question is how beat up they're going to be coming through, because now you get to 7. Yeah. Vegas is sitting watching on TV. Vegas would love what I just said. They're not the favorite. It's all going their way. But having played all those teams this year, the best team we saw late was Winnipeg.
One more thing on the Penguins, and I want to talk about Matt Murray. Because Matt Murray for 3 postseasons has been a bit of a story here. For the previous 2, though, Fleury's been there, and he hasn't necessarily been the guy.
Right.
He was the guy this year, and he had his worst postseason numbers yet. Is there something to that, Brian? Is there something to the pressures of being the guy who's expected to play like a #1 compared to his first 2 goes in the postseason when he kind of crept up on people?
Absolutely. If you go into Manhattan, go off Broadway, you'll see some wonderful actors. Then you put them on Broadway, and they can't handle that pressure. They freeze. It's much easier. It happened with our team this year with David Rittich. When he was backing up, he was brilliant. Then when Mike Smith got hurt and he had to start, now all of a sudden the weight of the world is on his shoulders.
Boom.
It was different. And he had trouble with it. He's a great kid, and he did his best for us. I thought Matt struggled a little bit. I don't know if it's that. It could be fatigue. These guys have played a lot of hockey. Yeah. Win back-to-back cups. You're playing lots of games. And then some of their guys have been involved in international tournaments or World Cups, and they looked fatigued to me last night. People said they didn't look inspired or motivated. To me, they looked like they wanted to do everything right, but they looked fatigued.
And I think you saw it in the start of the year. They got out of the gate slow. They got out of the gate slow last year, too, and then they kind of turned it on when they could. But I want to, next time you come by, can we talk about Ovi and the expectations? Because we've run out of time. But the expectations around him and getting to the.
I'm really happy for Ovi. This notion that he's the reason they can't advance. You look at his numbers.
Yeah.
It's garbage.
Right. Did you see us look at each other like we were fighting over the next question?
Yeah. I don't know you guys that well. So
we had it's classic Tim and Sid eye fight that happened.
Yeah, we had an eye fight here.
Classic eye fight.
I wanted it. He went Murray.
Yeah.